I had the chance to testify in the UK Parliament, in the House of Commons, regarding fake news in Catalonia, linked also to fake news during the Brexit referendum. Was it an issue while you were at the BBC, fake news affecting the Brexit referendum?
That's really interesting. So the answer in the UK, in the Brexit referendum, we don't fully know. There's a parliamentary review underway, and it's about whether or not there was any meaningful interference. Not just people saying things that were wrong, but was there a meaningful interference in this question of Russia? And I think that we'll get greater clarity out on it this year. I think we'll get greater clarity. I felt as though fake news as a category is actually quite a specific thing. I think misinformation, the term you use, is the much broader and more significant problem.
When we reported on this, we have actually singled out some outlets that usually engage in this type of behavior. And this type of behavior is like looking for sources that will actually reinforce a pre-established claim, and then these sources will give a headline. This headline will be published. This misinformation will penetrate the news environment in different countries, and then this gets a lot of steam by a lot of interactions in social networks like Facebook and Twitter, and you'll see 70-80% of dubious traffic coming from there, usually what we call bot farms. And one of their claims has always been, we are actually exactly like BBC News.
Well, firstly, I think the thing that you say about bot farms is the thing that we're all underestimating, right? So this huge increase in bots, so the dissemination of information that's wrong on an industrial scale I think is a huge issue. Well, look, they're not like the BBC. They're not because they don't have the guarantees of independence and don't have the behaviour that's independent. And it's a good way of testing it, which is how often and how willingly are you able, on legitimate grounds, to criticise your own government. That's a good way of testing the independence of any news organisation.
There's been a report, very recent. There's not a gender discrimination issue. That's what the report said. But there are still people complaining within the newsroom, especially women.
And I think the BBC is going through what's a very positive change, right? These changes are difficult, but it's a really positive one. So the BBC has set out to fix the gender pay gap, not narrow it, but eliminate it. The first organisation to do that.
All of news organizations nowadays have a problem, which is how women are represented on the top. What can be done in order to actually empower women to take more responsibility in news organizations?
Yeah. Well, what you're trying to deliver are two things, right? You're trying to deliver fairness, right? And fairness in all its senses. So fairness to people who've worked in the organisation for a long time, fairness so that you have a balance between women and men, fairness so that you have a mix of people in terms of colour and class and religion and just the mix of people.
Are you satisfied with the opportunities that were given to women during your tenure at the BBC? You think you were fair there?
I feel about this as I feel about most things, that we need to go further and faster, right? The BBC's issue, of course. The changes, though, were really big, so in news, roughly a quarter of the senior management were women when I arrived. By the time I left, it was well over a third, nearly 40%. You're changing. Now, is that enough? No. Is it the right direction? Yes, it is. And if you look at what's happening overall, we really made an effort to change the mix and change the senior management.
How the media has changed, not just at the national level in the UK or in Spain, but at the international level. I mean, BBC News and País were competing in the same market. A public TV in the UK with a lot of prestige, and the leading newspaper in Spain and in the Latin American world. We both publish news in Spanish, online, and we kind of compete in the same way.
There is a curious thing going on, isn't there? Which is, we still talk about newspapers and broadcasters and social media platforms. Whereas, of course, and the regulation, by the way, of us is all very different. But of course, we're all doing things that are incredibly similar. And it feels as though culturally and politically, the world hasn't really caught up yet. So yeah, I do think there's that. The differences, though, between us are much deeper than people appreciate.
Yeah.
The things that you can do at El País are just totally different to what you can do at the BBC. You can campaign, you can criticise, you can lean in to the news in ways that the BBC is required to report the news. It's a different relationship. But yeah, it has changed enormously.